Happy Friday afternoon for those who are in North America, or evening, or Saturday morning if you're in the other part of the world in Tokyo or Australia. Welcome everybody to HeartMind Happy Hour. Really excited to be here today, and I'm really especially excited about our topic on mysticism and dark mystical secrets with mystic Stephen Altair and meditation teacher. And really, this is gonna be a yummy conversation. This is like all things, I don't know, oozy and dark and mystical, spiritual. But before that, this is HeartMind Happy Hour. I'm your host, Holly Copeland. This is a show where we delve into consciousness, meditation, topics that are being talked about on HeartMind Alchemy Lab. And really the bridge here is of HeartMind Alchemy itself is ancient wisdom meeting modern science. And this will be a little bit more on the ancient wisdom theme today, but we will be talking too about some of the science that links up with this ancient wisdom. As we always do, try to weave these two together. We're doing this today because actually we have a special announcement. We have a workshop coming up that starts on March 15th, and we'll talk more about that later. But we're doing this conversation as a bit of a preview, prelude, whet your appetite for what we might be delving into in the workshop. But even if you have no interest in the workshop, hopefully you'll find the topic today about mysticism of interest, and really especially to talking about tools for how some of these ancient mystical secrets might actually be able to help relieve stress or just help you in your daily life. What can we learn from those ancient traditions that might actually be useful in our daily lives for real things that real people are facing? It's especially apparent for me today. Today I was in a number of meetings where people are just really challenged, and I hear that. I feel that, I understand it. And so if you had a hard, challenging day, I bow to you for being a human being walking the planet yet again today, and facing all the real things that people are facing, job challenges, family challenges, life challenges. So we are here, we hear that, we witness that, and we hope to bring you some levity and fun, and maybe even some wisdom to help you in your day. And with that, I welcome my dear friend and meditation teacher,
medicine, like the medicine Buddha. You do me more than honor, so I like that. We're all medicine Buddhas at heart. We're all bringing medicine to each other through compassion and calmness and love and light and beautiful sacred traditions. And so, I mean, the medicine traditions, it gives us a brilliant launching off point, Holly. And look, thank you also. I mean, I'm incredibly grateful to you and to everybody who's listening for the opportunity to speak about, mystical secrets. Because it's very much something that's very deep in my heart. And fundamentally, I mean, we are all mystics, right? Because a mystic simply is a person who has a direct experience of the sacred. And this is, a mystic is unbound by any, religion, any intermediary. There's no in between, right? So essentially, the moment that you have a direct experience of the sacred, an unbound experience of pure awareness or consciousness, then you are a mystic. So, and the key to that is really learning to connect to the unbound nature of your consciousness, this indivisible, limitless awareness that is, and connecting with that in a real way, in a way that we can have a direct experience. So, I especially take your lead on how challenging these times can be. I think, as you know, both of us see a lot of people. We have a lot of clients, whether it's in groups or individuals, and, people struggle. We all struggle. We all want happiness, and we all experience a degree of suffering in one form or another. And the mystical experience really does help us to connect to the profound, to connect to the sacred in us. So I just wanted to start with that, but just express my gratitude to you and all the Heart Mind Alchemy listeners and all the Heart Mind people, because that really at heart, that we're talking about the collective community of mystics that we all are and that we all bring when we acknowledge the sacred in each other.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Deep welcome to you on this afternoon. And your experience in these traditions is so vast. I mean, every time I talk to you, I said, hey, have you done this or heard of that? And it always amazes me, like, oh yeah, I did that 30 years ago. And oh, I did that. So you really do, you've walked this beautiful path of weaving your life in and out of all these different traditions. So maybe you want to speak a little bit about, so I heard you say, we're all a mystic if we've had any kind of real sacred experience, but kind of delving into the different traditions that, as humanity has had these different sacred experiences throughout history in different parts of the globe, these traditions have arisen as a way to maybe partially explain them, but to work with them to help people basically improve their lives, right? So tell us a little bit about some of the practices or traditions that you've been involved with and how they might be relevant to us.
Yeah, thanks, Holly. So I think, we start first and foremost, because if we look at the mystic as the sacred experience, and we look at the mystic as union with the divine, then a simple way of looking at this can be look at our ancestors, look at everybody's ancestors. So go back into your timeline and look at what are the roots, where do you come from? They often point straight to your mystical experience, to this profound sense of the sacred that actually runs right through your family. So as an example, one of my relatives was Roland Hassel, who great story. He died of tuberculosis in one of those times in England where there was a lot of sickness, and so they hauled him into the church, and he was in a coffin. And in the middle of the funeral ceremony, this has all been documented, so it's a great story. In the middle of the ceremony, there's a banging on the coffin, and they opened the coffin, unnailed it, and he sprung up out of the middle of the coffin in the church in front of all the people and says, I've seen the light, I've seen God, God's resurrected me, and I'm shifted. He wasn't particularly a religious person at that point, but I'm going to become a missionary. And sure enough, he did, and he traveled on the first boat out to Australia, stopped off at Tahiti, tried to convert people there, and then went down and established the first church. So I was always enchanted by this story, because I thought, I've got resurrection already in my blood. So when I look at the lineages that I was born into, there's that on one side. There was this kind of English, Irish, French, Australian kind of tradition, which began with that resurrection in that very humorous but extremely heartfelt story. I really can relate to it strong. On the other side, I've got this Maori, Hawaiian, Jamaican, Chinese Sahara root, which comes from my relatives on a number of sides came from the Sahara, so Africa, Jamaica, through to New Zealand, and then on another part of it came from the whole China migration through Japan, through Tahiti, Hawaii, down to New Zealand on an actually named canoe about 1200 years ago called the Taki Timu canoe. So my original ancestors were known as Taki, and Taki were chiefs and tohungas or medicine people, just as you've alluded to quite perfectly at the beginning. And they came on this canoe, and my great grandmother, she was a Maori royalty, so she was a princess at that time. Her name was Irihapati Taki, and she had this at that time, a chief by the name of Te Rapraha was really into mayhem, murder, and all the rest of it, and he actually murdered nearly all my people except for her. So it's my great-great-grandmother and her grandfather, who whisked her away to another side of New Zealand, and she married one of the Hassels. So it's kind of, there's this lovely intertwining of the indigenous peoples and the colonists. So as a result of that kind of experience, I've been very fortunate to be invited by the indigenous peoples of lots of different, areas and countries to be part of their, for example, in the Australian indigenous people, or the indigenous people of Australia, I was part of their songlines and their walkabouts. So I've done that, been with them. So I was invited by a good friend of mine, Sean, who was one of the, primary didgeridoo players in Australia at the time that I was there. And so he used to take me out and go walk about, and we'd, I'd talk from the Maori heart and he'd talk from his own indigenous heart. And it's a really beautiful kind of sense. And it's the same when I've been in Japan, spent time with Japanese shaman who, because of this, indigenous root, it's easy to relate. We go out and sit under waterfalls and experience the, the power of nature flowing through us. And it was the same when I was in the States. I was invited to a powwow gathering of all the, indigenous people. And so there was, the Hopi and the Iroquois and the Sioux and so on and so on. And the real incredible depth of simplicity of sitting in a sweat lodge, smoking whatever it was, and for a day being, literally immersed in these beautiful ceremonies and really feeling right into the heart of what the sacred experience is and what union with the divine means when we touch that through our, our nature, whatever it is. If you're from Ireland or Scotland or England, it could be the Celtic roots. And if you're from Europe, it could be, you could go right back into those really deep, Mesopotamian, Babylonian roots. If you're from the, Jewish traditions, you might go right back into these sacred, Kabbalistic practices. You might, if you're from the Middle East, could be back into Sufi, all the, fabulous Muslim experiences of the sacred. I was a great fan, years ago of people like, well, of course, Rumi, but particularly Omar Khayyam and the Heart of the Mystic. Some of these really beautiful poets. And a lot of the mystics often tend to be, poets, musicians, writers, poets. I spent some time in India with on Sri Aurobindo's ashram, and he was a mystic poet who essentially approached he was a mystic, a really deep mystic who said, look, it's pretty tough for people to understand and explain the mystical experience because it's an unbound experience. It's not really within the conceptual mind. So if you haven't experienced it, sometimes you think, well, how am I supposed to comprehend this mystic, realization of divine truth and all the mysteries? Well, fundamentally, he explained it as a direct intuitive experience of the supreme reality, where through visions or through direct communion with God, and through turning inwards. So he described much the same thing as, the Tibetan Buddhist practices of Dzogchen and Mahamudra, that as we turn inwards, the mind literally transcends, or you reach the nature of mind. It transcends the conceptual practices or our habits of the mind. And from a mundane level, you're transported to this higher level. So I lived in his community for a while. It was very rich, being in this incredible atmosphere of poetry and spirituality and, visionary practices. So I was really fortunate. I taught in his community and spent time there. In Rabindranath Tagore, who's another famous Indian poet, I taught and spent time in his community. Krishnamurti, I lived in Krishnamurti's house and was part of his community. I was in Yogananda's community, and so on and so, Tibetan Buddhist, I spent time in Tibetan Buddhist monasteries. And
you've been everywhere, done everything. Is there a thing that
my point is, it's not about the doing, it's literally about being there as a community. You know, the sacred is nowhere more close than our own hearts and our communities. And that's the simple fact that I discovered in being with these people is, you know, the heart of the mystic is right there in the heart of all those communities. They all express it in slightly different ways, but, you know, they're right here with us. They're here in you, Holly. You know, look at the HeartMind Alchemy. I mean, you can hardly get more a mystical name than that. And, you know, I was introduced by Ruth Anderson to Kevin Scheininger, and he and I launched the, you know, Raising Our Vibration community. And, you know, there's another mystic right there, Kevin, that not only the mystical experience of meeting Kevin, and I interviewed him on Clear Quiet Mind. He interviewed me on my book, The Diary of a Yogi, and we formed this whole, you know, Raising Our Vibration community through that natural, mystical community of recognizing the sacred in each other. Same with Constantine. You know, the whole Conscious Accelerator is a sacred collaboration of community with all of us, and Ian and John and all these other wonderful folk who really deeply see the sacred in each other. So the mystic is no, you know, further away or closer than experiencing the sacred directly in our hearts. And it's such a profound thing when you think about that.
Totally, absolutely. And I think what's so fascinating, and as listening to you talk, you know, it's like clearly this has been experienced by human beings all over the world for, you know, forever. And at the same time, there's this unifying element of touching the divine. And it feels like, to bring in some of the science here, it's this turning away from the analytical conceptual mind. It's coming, you know, into to really, it's like the feminine sort of open nature that we are. It's, you know, dropping into gratitude and surrender to discover this true nature. And what I find so interesting is that, as you know, science has started to explore these, and there's been some really interesting papers that have come out, you know, in the last 10 years or so, where they've looked at changes, you know, at sort of the enlightenment and mystical experiences and the qualities of mystical experiences. And isn't it true that what they found is those papers like Newberg and Beauregard, for example, and Flor Henry's another one that looked at shamans. So they looked at Carmelite nuns, they've looked at shamans, monks, and they're finding is sort of greater coherence across the brain in theta and alpha, but also this really interesting shift to the right side. So this kind of clear trend of right-sided gamma, which, you know, gamma is produced by gratitude and surrender, right? So, and it's also the feminine side of our brain. So it's this. So I'd be curious your thoughts on that, but it feels like this science is supporting this opening into surrender, which is opening into the divine.
I look, I totally agree. So on the science of it, curiously, Kevin and I were talking about exactly this morning, that, you know, in a lot of the research, they've discovered that when we have meditation or practices that are really focused, there's sympathetic arousal, right? And the sympathetic arousal, so we, for example, we concentrate on the inner spine, the inner sushumna, the channel. We draw the energies upwards to the crown, which is fundamentally the masculine side. It's the positive polarity of the body electric. So our body being like a battery with generating fields. We draw the energies upwards and we generate more of what is the sympathetic arousal and the positive polarities of the body and the masculine field. And when we do the opposite, when we ground down into our belly womb or even down to the feet, or so we bring this open-hearted awareness downwards and focus into the earth, there's a more parasympathetic connection. So there's this more quality of stillness and this open, spacious awareness that's very still and space. So rather than the strong sympathetic masculine side of arousal, there is the parasympathetic feminine side of arousal. And as you've said, you know, this alludes to the fact or points to the fact that quite often meditation and practices, we're all about the brain. You know, we focus on the third eye or the crown, and that is a very masculine centered type of meditation, whereas the feminine is very womb based, very down, dark, hence the title, The Dark Mystical Secrets. You know, there is a real power in being able to shift between, and there are real profound states that open by bringing about a shift in attention. There's a lot of research in the on, you know, in EEG, heart rate variability, and so on, that show that by shifting states and shifting focal points, that we can reach very different states. So, and Kevin and I were talking about fact, you know, when we think about tension, for example, so you can do this now if you bring your awareness to your heart and you bring to mind a, you know, you were mentioning tension at the beginning. So say, for example, we've got some tension with a family member, or we've got tension with friends. Where do we feel that? Well, when it's judgmental, it's typically around here, right? Our chest tightens, there's a tension in our chest. And if we bring our awareness, first of all, to that, so I'll show you what I mean. I'll give you a simple practice. So you simply don't pick something too difficult, but close your eyes with me now just for a few moments, and we're just going to drop. We're going to give thanks for what's present. So we're just going to open ourselves to gratitude for what's here and now, and you're just going to drop, rest for a moment, and rest in the breath, and let the breath come and go quite naturally. Don't try to do anything. Just simply rest in the nature of the breath, and bring to mind something that might be challenging you right now. It's just something very simple. Any activity. Don't make it too challenging. So if you're having a really difficult day with your husband, you know, don't bring that to mind in all its intensity, but maybe, you know, a challenging moment with your husband that's not too overwhelming, and just bring that to mind. It might be an old memory. It might be something that you find difficult to do. It may be something you're criticized for. And think about this in a way that, see if you can find this challenging experience and just bring it to mind, and notice what thoughts or feelings or sensations arise in a present when you bring this challenging situation to mind. Especially notice where is that feeling, sensation in your body right now as you're listening to me. So it could be in the heart, as I suggested. It might be in the head. So you might get a kind of a sense of confusion in the head, or you might get a more judgmental tightness in the heart, or you might feel really down, really deep down in the belly, that there's this sense of restlessness or tension in a different way. So just tune in to that just for a few moments. So imagine the situation, experience it just as if you're experiencing the feelings, what it's actually like. So put yourself right into the experience and notice some of the details and what this experience actually feels like. Get really curious about it. See what happens. Really learn something about it. Develop a relationship with it. Really see what happens when you're in that situation. Okay, now let go of it and just begin to breathe, and breathe in a sense of gratitude, just a simple gratitude for being alive, for having a relationship with that feeling, that challenging feeling, and for having a relationship with the challenging person. So just breathe in with a sense of gratitude, fill your cells with gratitude, and breathe out with the sense of love through the heart. So really send love to yourself, to every cell. Send love to that challenging emotion, like embrace it. It's almost as if you've got this all-embracing love within which is sitting that really challenging emotion. And you can, the person that maybe you find is challenging is sitting right there too. And everything's unfolding within this awareness, this open and unobstructed love that you're feeling for that challenging experience. So see if you can experience what's unfolding as pure love, as just a simple love and compassion. So whatever is happening in this moment is simply an expression of this power of love within your heart. The heart's amazing. It just has such a capacity to open, be open-hearted and embrace. This open-hearted awareness is actually with you every moment. This unobstructed love, this power of love that's flowing through you, with you in this very moment. So just drop into this open, spacious, open-hearted awareness and allow whatever comes to come and go naturally. You actually don't have to focus on the experience at all. You notice that, right? It's just dropped away. All that tension's just dropped away. There's just simply allowing yourself to be this open, boundless expanse of love within which all the experiences come and go quite naturally. So you're dropping all effort. You don't need to do anything whatsoever. You're just resting in this boundless awareness, this mystical, boundless state, and allowing everything else to come and go. Now just drop that all together. Just for the next few moments. Don't try to meditate. Don't try to be effortless. Don't try to be pure awareness. Forget all about it. Just sit. There's nothing you need to do other than trust and feel that sense of love and gratitude and devotion for what's present. Nothing at all to do. Nowhere to go. No past, no history, no meditator, no meditation. Just simply rest. Okay, and then just slowly bring your awareness and attention back to the here and now, and slowly open your eyes with the sense of love and gratitude for all it is, right? At the moment, you have that sense of gratitude. That's all there is. Gratitude has no bounds. It's got no edges. It just simply is gratitude. If you have even the tiniest glimpse of gratitude for one simple moment, that moment is timeless, right? It's timeless, boundless, infinite, indivisible. You're never separate from gratitude, from love, from compassion, from this infinite power of the universe at all. And so that these moments serve to remind us that really this incredible, the mystical secret is that we are that. We simply are that presence, the I am presence, the presence of gratitude, the presence of love, because all that love is simply being open and unbounded. If you simply embrace everything with this unbounded, open, clear, and unobstructed essence, we call it love, we call it compassion, but in essence, it's what's present when everything else, when the identity and all its history and everything else we've attached to it has just dropped away, just vanished. And then there's the unknowable, right? The unnameable, what we tend to call God. Or, I mean, this is the union with God. You're literally in that union with the divine. And, you know, this brings to mind the experience of Saint Teresa of Avila, who was, you know, very near and dear to my heart from when I was a young lad. Because I was, from the age of 0, I was brought up by I was going to say fairy godmother, but actually she felt like that. She was a Carmelite Mother Superior by the name of Kathleen Adamson. And she, you know, really cultivated this sense of what I'm talking to you now, the sense of immense gratitude, the sense of feeling protected, loved by a divine mother from when I was just 0. And Saint Teresa of Avila, you know, describes a mystical practice. She was actually seen in church, you know, levitating above the pews. So you can imagine going into the, no wonder the nuns have got so right temporal gamma going. I think they've been, you know, they have an incredible lineage that's, you know, often we don't know much about, of these incredible mystical practices and experiences. But she describes, much in the same way as Tibetan Buddhism does, a process of an ascent to God, or an ascent to the divine, or ascent to union, which, you know, initially first involves contemplation, really simple, you know, mental prayer contemplation. So this is what I did as a little fella. And I mean, when I was just, this is what she got me to do when I was just 1 or 2. And probably how some of these very early dreams came about, because she helped me to tap into, you know, a collective history which involved a lot of mystics in the Carmelite tradition, like Saint Teresa of Lisieux, Saint Teresa of Avila, Saint John of the Cross, Saint Francis of Assisi, so on, whom I just love to bits. I just thought, you know, I want to marry them, or I'll be a saint, or I want to be something like that. So as you do when you're a little 5 or 6-year-old, you think, I can marry Saint Teresa. There must be somebody like her around. So you know, the first is this devotion of the heart. So it's really heart-based practice. And so when you think about the practices of Dzogchen or Mahamudra, or glimpses that Locke Kelly's talking about, it's all about this open-hearted awareness. And that was her, you know, her first step was about devotion of the heart in terms of mystical practice, and what she called her mystical thought, which she wrote about in her autobiography. And the second part, so first is your heart. You turn inwards, right? You get connected to the heart, its sense of devotion. And it's interesting, if you look at the lives of, you know, Milarepa, Naropa, some of the famous Tibetan mystics, they always talk about after they were enlightened, what do? They came back to simple devotion to each other. This is where we foster the sense of sacred, is in our devotion to each other and our devotion, care, and kindness to each other. So first, devotion of the heart. Second is the devotion of peace, where basically you surrender to God. Now, if you look at any of the practices that we're working with in our meditation, for example, we are literally learning to let go. We're learning to surrender. We're learning to drop the effort, right? Which was part and parcel of what that practice I was doing was all about. So this is the second state. So first, learn about devotion. So you can do that in Tibetan Buddhist practice. It's done through bodhicitta, guru yoga, shamatha practice, and so on. The second one, where you surrender and you look really deeply into the nature of things, which is like vipassana. You literally learn to investigate right into the heart and the nature of mind, the nature of your practice, and then you learn to let go. And fundamentally, learning to let go is based around the simple presence or premise rather, that there's something greater than you, the identity. That the moment you drop the identity, then in fact the unknowable becomes present. And then the third stage she talked about was devotion of union. Now this is where you achieve absorption, heightened ecstatic states, where you really connect with in her words, the higher soul faculties, in order to, you become enraptured. Now, rapture is interesting because, you know, in the jhana states, if you look at the work of, you know, Ajahn Brahm, Ajahn Chah, so that was the tradition of Vipassana I was trained in with Jack Cornfield. The rapture is one of the initial jhana states. So very early on, you experience this sense of bliss, this, as she described it, as a sweet slumber. Or a bliss, you know, it's really delicious, right? You can kind of sense it. You say, yeah, I want that stuff. You know, I want to bask or bathe in the sense of bliss and really bliss that where there's no identity, where you just simply can learn to let go. So bliss is a fundamental state, whether you look at Christian mystics, whether you look at, you know, the Tibetan mystics, it was very present as part of the process. And the fourth one she described was the devotion of ecstasy, where the consciousness of the body disappears. Now, if we consider in mystical terms, what is it that it fundamentally happens in the mystical process, we basically do transcend the body, right? At a certain point, instead of us being in the body and looking out at everything, which is this very object-based awareness, instead of that, there is this open, spacious awareness that we are, that within which the body arises and does its everyday things, but there is always this consciousness of being absorbed in God, source, whatever words you want to use, where body, mind, spirit literally there is a letting go to such a profound extent that there's no longer any separation of subject and object. And the subject, as she used to describe, she says the subject awakens from, you know, the trance of separateness into this sense of union with God. And the culmination of the mystical experience for her, as I said, was, you know, she'd be levitating, or some other city or power would develop quite naturally and would actually lift her up beyond, you know, almost symbolically lift her up beyond the physical. And people say, levitation, you know, it's not possible. Well, I'm very fortunate that I've been in the presence of, you know, swamis and mystics and sadhus all over India and Nepal and Tibet. And I've seen people, you know, I wandered out in the country one day and there's a sadhu there, and he's an old fellow with a long beard sitting there out in the heat of the sun, nothing there, you know, and he says, "Do you want to see me lift this rock?" I said, "Yeah, sure." I mean, this is not a rock. This is a boulder about the size of your room. And so he just sits there, you know, and you can tell you can feel this crackle in the air, and then the rock rise. Not, you know, it didn't rise above my head. It rose about a foot off the ground. I could actually go underneath. I could feel it, see it, you know. So the over my lifetime, I've seen these incredible, and been part of and felt the way that the mystery works through you. Because ultimately that's what it is, right? The mystic is the mystery in us. It's actually being humble enough and being open enough and surrendering to the fact that, hey, the cosmos is pretty massive and there are a lot of opportunities. And quantum physics says the universe is fundamentally unlimited, infinite. Now, if it's infinite, that means all possibilities. All possible. So we're talking multidimensional, we're talking right across the board, you know, the kind of opportunities you've ever only dreamed of are actually out there. And infinite doesn't have a bound to it. You can't say, oh, yeah, the universe is infinite, but actually, no, what you're saying is inaccurate. It can't happen. This part of reality is infinite, but this part isn't. You know, that's where it gets really challenging for people, because they're fundamentally discussing the infinite nature with a conceptual mind. And once you discover the mystic in you, you realize that the boundless is here. The boundless is right in that heart of yours that's been beating time for so many years, and it knows the secrets. And it's right here in the womb or the belly. It has a tremendous power that is fundamentally unharnessed. And it's right here in your brain, which has been for such a long time, as you said quite rightly, is, you know, maybe trapped in the DM and default mode, or it's trapped in some part of the brain, and it hasn't recognized the opportunity to liberate and work with other areas of the brain. So like you said in the, you know, the Carmelite paper, I mean, I love the way that these the researchers basically, and they do it with a proviso saying, yeah, we're not quite sure whether this is, you know, but this is our experience. And Beauregard definitely, you know, discovered that both theta and gamma. So if we're to look at it generally, both theta and gamma had greater power in the mystical experience. So the nuns described, you know, being in union with God, seeing angels, you know, all those classical mystical experiences, and their brain literally shifted, it achieved greater power. So I think sometimes, you know, we get a bit hung up on, well, is it gamma? And is it real? Is it an artifact? Or is it theta? Or is it coherent or not? Is it left or right side? I think when we look at the fact that we each have our own unique brain signature, like an orchestra, we're playing a melody, and when we literally let go into the unknowable, which is what the nuns were doing, then there is a shift in activity. And I think that's the power of Andrew Newberg's, you know, research with MRI and so on, is instead of saying there's this or there's that, he says, well, actually there is a fundamental shift in the energy in the brain, in the frontal cortex, or in the parietal, or in the occipital, or there's a raised, you know, right temporal power. So you can, what happens is you actually, it's like the orchestra passing the solo over to the flute section or the violin. Suddenly in the mystical experience, you know, the violins start playing a melody that they weren't playing before, and the area of the brain associated with that lights up. Doesn't mean it's hard and fast. No, of course it doesn't, right? Because every mystical experience is fundamentally different, unique, and individual to ourselves. And I think, you know, in HeartMind Alchemy, that's something that we've been really privy to all the members. You know, there's this incredible sharing and learning. So we're kind of at the pioneering days of realizing what the brain signatures actually mean and how versatile they are, and how incredibly deep we can learn, not just from each other, but we can learn about our own melody that we're playing. So I think the research is useful, and it's useful primarily in saying, like the shaman's paper, you know, like you mentioned Floyd Henry's paper. So that was primarily noticing that it shifted from an analytical left brain to a much more experiential, you know, extrasensory right brain. So those shifts are, those are right perfect shifts in terms of the mystical experience, because mystical is talking unbound, it's talking sacred. How do you define the sacred? I hope we never do. You know, I hope we literally trust in the sacred in each other. I mean, wouldn't it be brilliant if we had the whole, every government of the world was not based on politics, but was based on the sacred, and was based on the divine in every single person. I mean, we would, if that was the ground view of our planet to begin with, we would totally reorient our economy, the way that we arrange communities, everything based on that simple shift in a view. So this is where, you know, mystical practice particularly becomes so potent, because we start to recognize the value of all of these, you know, ancient practices. So you're talking about some, you know, shamanism, for example, you know, the ability to access the world of spirits. What about if we actually really honored the power of the indigenous peoples to access the world of spirits? I when I was about 15, I had an experience where a friend had done something not really that positive with Ouija boards and all of that, and she and her friends were possessed by demons, and they literally were. And I was able, through the power of a really deep experience with Christ, to help liberate that demon. And I actually saw the demon. It's the first time, and hopefully the last time in my life, I see a demon. However, it actually helps you to have a relationship with the world of spirits. You know, most of the time we're separate from things is because we don't have a relationship with them. So this is where I love what the Dalai Lama says, where he's now stopped banishing, you know, demons to, so he talks about demons and all the rituals he does. He says he stopped banishing them to the West, because that would be sending them off to America. And instead, he's compassionately open to the demons actually being liberated and having a place in our world. And that was pretty much
what happened.
That's exactly what happened in the last, exactly.
I'm just kidding. That was too served up. But I wanted to comment on a couple of things that you said, because there was a lot of really beautiful stuff in there. And I think, you know, with mystical experiences in particular, you know, I was just, you know, what is it that's important to us about them? And I guess I can speak for myself. It feels like, you know, in some sense, they could be really ordinary, like the pointing out that you did and what you were talking about of feeling the divine in our heart. And you know, Rupert Spire's words come to mind of, you know, enlightenment is, or a cup of tea, the taste of tea is more interesting than enlightenment, you know? So that's a little baffling, right? When you think about it, because it's like, well, okay. I mean, I get that if you could really sit in awareness all the time, then that, you know, that is the sort of end goal, right? And at the same time, what the mystical experiences to me have always pointed to throughout my life is this understanding that this 3D world that we can see, that most people, you know, for most of us, the reality is this 3D world that we can see and feel and touch and taste. And that when we have experiences, you know, whether it's working with a medium and we connect with our grandmother, or whether we have a Ouija board experience and a ghost comes out, or, you know, whatever these, you know, or whether we take DMT, you know, we meditate and we have Kundalini experiences and we release DMT, so we see the light, or whether, you know, all these different forms that human beings throughout history have, you know, basically it's it's seeing the multidimensional nature of ourselves, of understanding that we are not this physical, limited to this physical construct that we're seeing. I mean, to me, that's the heart of it. The heart of it is knowing with beyond a shadow of a doubt that it is not just what we're seeing with our eyes and hearing with our ears. And that is very hopeful when you feel like you're stuck in this limited 3D world. It feels really, for me, I'll speak for myself, it's felt very comforting. Anytime one of those experiences has touched my life, it's like, oh, thank God. Okay, it's not just what we're seeing here. There's something much, much, much bigger going on. And so I think it's interesting that to me, that's what mystical experiences, are why they're so alluring, why they're important, why people chase after them, why we seek to speak with our guides and angels, is to really know that we get to touch into the multidimensional nature of reality. And at the same time, my own understanding has come to realize that to touch into those worlds actually is not where true happiness lies. The true happiness is actually found in this, through actual awareness and touching into the heart of what we are. So I think there's this really interesting thing going on with kind of the absolute reality understanding that we get when we meditate and touch into awareness, and this sort of relative world of touching into the multidimensional nature of reality. And so I'd love if you could comment a little bit on that, and then we'll stop there. I also want to talk to you a little bit about this sort of positive, negative going into the womb, but maybe that can be next.
So so to the nature of mystical experience, because that's what we're talking about, and the nature of unbound awareness. It's a little bit like our own meditation practice. When you look through the lists of people describing meditation practices, or what are called nyams in the Tibetan tradition, there are a variety of experiences we have, right? Like this bliss, or this clarity, or this emptiness. But those are actually states that we experience, and they have a certain felt sensation to them, and they have a certain signature. Some people are more oriented towards bliss, some are more oriented towards stillness, for example. And it's a little bit the same with the mystical experiences or siddhis. They arise quite naturally. They're a little bit like so Holly, you've got access to the shaman world, and over here, Stephen has access to an angel world, right? It's just purely, there's no reason in the infinite nature of the universe why that should be particularly odd. That just simply is the orchestra playing a different melody. And it's only when we attach to them, when we make them who we are, or make them better or worse than somebody else's experience, that we actually lose a sense of the ineffable, unknowing, and infinite nature of the cosmos. If genuinely us connecting with guides gives us a deep, heartfelt sense of love, happiness, compassion, openness, then it's really helping. It is actually genuinely helping. And it may help us our entire lives. It might be there for a short time. It might actually open a portal to a deeper and more profound sense of Rupert's having a cup of tea. That then you literally, that portal opens the door to, oh, right, I get it. I can actually sit and have a cup of tea with my guide. I'm alone in my house. My wife has passed on. I can actually develop a relationship with the other world that's just as powerful. I can reach across worlds. I mean, we don't teach children or adults enough of this relationship with the infinite possibilities of the universe. We teach them about a bound relationship with what they see and hear, exactly as you said. That tends to be where the majority of our society and our civilization has become fixed, because that's what you see right in front of you. It's like you walk into a room. Do you feel the love in the room, or do you notice the very expensive vase that's somebody wanted you to come and see? We tend, to go into places and objectify what's present, rather than feeling rather than feeling the love in the cup of tea. So the importance and the power of any of the mystical experiences, because they are just experiences, they're not to be held on to, they're just keys in the great adventure of life. They literally open the portal for people to say, just like as you said, oh, right, I recognize why I'm so in touch with ancestors and can see people's dearly departed, because I have a genuine relationship, a sacred, again, we come back to the sacred. I have a sacred divine relationship with that, and I honor that. And I'm able to really help other people let go and actually really trust in their own power to touch the sacred and the divine. So that's the, if you want to talk about the functional aspects of mystical experience, that's where it becomes really, really very helpful. Because ultimately everything we do, it's like bodhicitta. It's like our whole practice, our every breath is dedicated towards, service, helping others, liberating others, helping others on their path, being kind, being compassionate. And that's, so if we've got that quality, then the mystical experience will manifest in the same way, just like the cup of tea will. We'll be kind in our meditation practice, we'll be kind with our children, we'll be kind with our cup of tea, and we'll be kind in our mystical experiences when we're dealing with talking to dearly departed ones to another person. So there's this fundamental quality that's like a tapestry and a thread that interweaves and touches every part of that. So that's what we're really looking towards, and you've said it yourself, the open-hearted awareness. That's what we're really looking for, is the same open-hearted awareness in whatever it is. Then whether you're freeing people from demons or whether you're having a cup of tea, it's all the same thing. It's all, you're ultimately just, the only, in my case, the only reason that I've worked with people's demons in the past is because that was present for me and I wanted to help. It didn't matter how I did it. I just really wanted to genuinely help them. I asked for guidance from Christ at the time because I was 15, and the guidance came, and he came into my room, and it was incredible, resplendent beauty, just truly, truly touching experience. And in whatever way, I'm not trying to say, yes, that's the real Jesus. He only looks like this. He only no. What I'm trying to say is, in that moment, that mystical portal opened for me and allowed me to touch and help liberate friends who were really struggling and suffering at the time. And that's the power of it, is it just opens a portal to you deepening, your kindness and compassionate awareness and this, and bringing alive the sacred in another human being. I can tell you, the friend that went through this with me, she frothed at the mouth. She went unconscious when I did this, practice healing on her. Well, I wasn't doing the healing. Christ was, the Christ consciousness was, or the divine was, because I could feel that light and I just got out of the way. But fundamentally at the end of it, it changed her life, because she said, I'm free. She literally felt free. Up till that time, she'd been, a month in angst and anxiety and pain and suffering, and a friend had died, another friend was on a drug overdose, another friend got put in jail, all over this really short period. It was a lot of suffering that went on as a result of what they'd done. But to be able to assist somebody in whatever way it is, it's not about the experience, it's about that quality of liberation, that quality of open-hearted awareness, and that beautiful quality of being able to have a cup of tea with the same open-hearted awareness that you bring to liberating demons. You bring it to the cup of tea as well, and you serve the tea as if you're serving to Christ or Buddha. So you bring that same open-hearted awareness to that. So that's just about that aspect that you were referring to. I think it's really important that anybody who's listening remembers, if you've got the power of telepathy, for example. So I worked with a partner some years ago, and we had direct telepathy, and we did all the usual, if it sounds like a sci-fi program, being in separate rooms and being able to read cards and all that sort of thing. But ultimately, and enter each other's dreams and be able to read things for people. And ultimately, if you've got that, you want to bring that for the benefit of others. So that's what we tried to look at was, you know, how is this actually going to be beneficial for humanity? If you just keep it to yourself and, you know, hey, we've got the power, you don't, right? That's not a very compassionate way to look at the bringing the sacred alive for everybody, or bringing the divine to light within everybody's hearts. So if you're one of the people listening and you've already awoken these dark mystical secrets, or the, you know, the power within, then really bring that into your practice and into your daily life in a way that's going to benefit people and help humanity to find that same sacredness and divinity in them. Then the whole mystical experience, like Sri Aurobindo was talking about transcending and in union with the divine, actually starts to have a real practical benefit for the general, you know, upliftment and evolution of humanity. Because we're looking at affecting generations, you know, 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. All of that kind of thing is so crucial to humanity right at this turning point where we're grappling with climate change, a pandemic, you know, economic issues, you know, all sorts of political structures undergoing change. We really want to bring the sacred alive. We really want to honor the divine, and we want to bring our kindness and sense of one humanity into everything we do, so that we can drop all these barriers and divisions of nations and all the rest of it that we've constructed. We need to deconstruct. We need to open the path of humanity to the boundless nature of what's present.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, really being, you know, what I hear and feel is in my own life and in what you said is the path of being able to see the divine arising in everything that is the ultimate path, right? That's where true enlightenment lies, is that you really feel the divinity in all things, that you're, as you often say, that you're never separate from it. And the danger of some of the mystical, and I've heard it certainly talked about in some Buddhist books that I've read, is, you know, that you can get drawn into experience like a CD or something like that, and that's really just object-oriented reality ultimately. And so we can kind of look at that and be in, you know, awe of that, but that in and of itself isn't actually where the true enlightenment lies, because the true enlightenment is in the divinity. And
Right.
And I think the question I would ask, since where it's been about an hour, and I love sort of a little bit of a closing question, and whatever else you feel called to share. But, you know, if you were to think of all the ancient tools, you know, if you were to kind of, and all your wisdom that you have, and you were to pick one that would really help people, you know, as we said, improve meditation, dissolve stress, and find inner wisdom, you know, of those things that you're aware of, what's the secret? What's the secret, Stephen? People want to know.
It's a beautiful question. So I think the secret is actually very simple, and it's spoken about in, you know, every mystic, from Taoist sages to Sufi mystics to Kabbalistic practitioners. They ultimately, when it gets down to it, it's very simple. They talk about the non-doing, or the allowing, or the surrendering. So for example, I'll give you like a 3-minute feeling of this. It's better if you get a feeling, because we talk about it and all I'm doing is putting you into conceptual brain. I'd really like to put you into that essence. So if you just close your eyes with me for a moment. So it's really simple. You're just going to close your eyes. Everybody who's listening, just simply close your eyes. And all you're going to do right here and now is just be present with the natural, open, pure expression of your own being. And I just want you to, as you go inwards, just become aware of your breath first, become aware of your posture, straighten a little, check the cues. It is so simple. Check your feet on the ground, your hands relaxed in your lap, connect with your heart, connect with your belly or your womb, Feel the spine straight, like coins stacked on top of each other. Check with the clarity in your head. And just notice what's coming, going in your experience. Follow your intuition. Just get curious about what's present and feel it. Just simply allow. Simply allow it and sense it deeply. And as you allow these experiences, simply you're surrendering to your own natural, effortless presence. As you notice these experiences coming and going, see if you can see them as an expression of your own awakened nature. It doesn't matter what it is, the essence of every thought, every perception, every feeling and every sensation is awakened, clear, open, infinite, and indivisible. So turn inwards. See if you can find the one that's having the experience, right? It's unfindable. So in that unfindability, that ungraspability, there's no limit to ungraspability, is there? If you can't find something, there's no limit, there's no edge. There's just simply this empty clarity, this historylessness. There's no history, there's no past, there's no future, there's this present. And it infuses every experience. If you let a thought arise now of your family, so easeful, just arises, bides for a while, dissolves. It infuses every thought, perception and sensation that you're having in this moment, in every moment. All you've got to do is trust that this awakened nature, this clear openness to every experience is fully present. The moment that you allow, you are that openness. The moment you surrender and you allow whatever's present simply to be present, the very quality of turning inwards and allowing what's present to be present, that is the opening to the infinite nature of all things. Because the moment you turn inward and are open, this is never-ending, unborn awareness that's aware. It's like you're this vast ocean or this vast sky within which all these experiences, even the body, is arising, within which every thought and feeling and sensation arises. So trust this is who you are. Trust that this is your true nature right now, this moment, and this, and this. Now allow yourself to rest in this pristine awareness and allow everything else to come and go through this open space of pure awareness. There's nothing to do here. You're just dropping into this space, this all-embracing space, this space of pure awareness, this pure, open-hearted expression, this pure, open-hearted embrace of all you are, this unobstructed flow of love and compassion. It embraces everything, and you are that. So allow yourself simply to be. What an extraordinary, rare opportunity simply to be. So just completely drop all effort. Drop any expectation, any judgment, any hope, any fear, any past, any future, any idealistic expectation of what you should experience. Drop all that. Give yourself permission to radically open to whatever is happening in this very moment. Give yourself permission to radically open wide. Give yourself permission to open infinitely and embrace all that is, to drop all the effort and completely trust in your own awakened nature. There's nothing to do. There's no meditator, no meditation, no experience, nothing. Just trust. This is devotion, right? Devotion to your own awakened nature. This is compassion, right? This all-embracing nature of all that is. Nothing to do. Simply let go and rest. So now slowly open your eyes with me. Slowly, with appreciation, with gratitude, with an open heart. It's like having that cup of tea, right? Everything, your thoughts, feelings, perceptions, they're that cup of tea. Over these moments, just slowly move your body a little bit in this awareness. Wiggle your toes and your fingers. Feel this delicious sense of appreciation, of love. It's warm, right? The heart's so warm. Slowly move your head about. See everything, feel everything with this open-hearted awareness. Take in all the small details with a sense of warmth, appreciation, like a young child viewing a temple for the first time. There's this awe, this innocence, this freshness, this delight, this openness and welcoming, this beautiful acceptance of all that is. You see everything as a display of this open-hearted love, compassion, radiant awareness. So what we just did was experiment with the way that we use our intention to link everything that happens in our daily life with the recognition of this pure, unobstructed, infinite, and indivisible awareness. One of the key points to consider is the way that we use intention and expectation. With intention, we're not invested in an outcome. We just simply rest in this knowingness, this devotion to what is, this view that everything we experience in every moment is absolutely pure and whole and perfect. So we're not invested in an outcome. We use the full range of all opportunities. So this is like the mystical experience. We use the full range of every opportunity to experience the divine in every thought, the divine in every person. Buddha, you meet the Buddha through your children, through your wife or husband, your partner, through the people when you go out shopping. Everything you walk on becomes a lotus blossom. The supermarket becomes a mandala, glowing. You feel this love, this compassion, this gratitude in everything. So it's felt. So we use these full range of experiences, everything, to experience the divine. And we embody that view. It's very much a felt sensation. We embody the view that whatever comes in our day, we have this intention. It's not an expectation, just an intention to stay connected to being aware, to being this open, spacious awareness, to allow as a present moment experience. We stay connected and let go again and again and again in this effortless, natural presence with what is. Anything that arises. If it's challenging, we embrace it. We trust. We allow. If it's positive, we embrace it. We trust. We allow. So we allow this awareness to naturally emerge. That is union with the divine. That is the sacred in us, embracing all. And it's millions and millions of different ways that it manifests. We embrace it all with this sense of sacredness, love, and open-hearted awareness.
That was a beautiful answer. And practice. Thank you deeply. I think it's also the perfect place to wind up the conversation. So we are, for folks who may not know, we're putting on a Practical Mystic 10-week course starting March 15th. It'll be 7 o'clock Mountain Time. And you can go find details at heartmindalchemy.com and also a link to sign up if you're interested. Just other details, it's $298. And we have a reduced price option as well for those with financial hardship. And Stephen, I would love for you to talk a little bit more about the course. This is going to run from, tarot to crystals to meditation practices, dark arts, all kinds of things that we just touched on little bits today, CDs. And we'll actually talk more about, we'll have 10 weeks and almost 2 hours each night. So it's quite a bit of time. And really, really excited. People may not know, but I had a whole metaphysical side to my upbringing. So I have some background in that and bring my own kind of experience and use of cards and crystals and things like that. The little not so known fact about me, maybe a little more known on Facebook Live now. But I've always had a real curiosity for those kinds of things. And yeah. So Stephen, what would you like to say about the course?
Yeah, so look, briefly, the course is all about you. It's about touching the sacred and divine in you. So really, the Practical Mystic, so I ran the Practical Mystic years ago in USA and Canada. It was very popular. I did it all over the place. So usually at those big spiritual fairs in retreat formats and so on. And the gift really of the mystic in us is being able to return to primordial awareness and being able to touch the extraordinary unlimited capacities we naturally possess, whatever they are, through this heart-mind or heart-brain-womb connection, or brain-heart-womb connection. So it's about activating the extrasensory perceptions that we naturally possess. So these are in the unobstructed awareness that is infinite. All these possibilities are present. So there are ways of looking at things like the Akashic Records, looking at past or coemergent lives, looking at multidimensional realms, looking at interplanetary memories, the ways that we can actually transcend time and space, looking at our connections with animals and the animal races and our wonderful, the wonderful beings that inhabit this planet with us, about deep connections to that, and cosmic wisdom. So it's really about the ecstatic union with the divine and the various ways that we can get in touch with this unobstructed passion and nectar in our life through transcendent experience and embodied insight. So yeah, we will fundamentally, what we're going to do in a very brief nutshell is we're going to look at the ancient traditions, particularly make them relevant to you and your own connections with it. So if you're going to do the course with us, look deeply into your family background and everything. You might uncover a few surprises. And then we're going to go into, visionary experience, things like dark retreat, into telepathy, remote viewing, telekinesis, all of those kinds of areas that you've probably wondered about and wondered either how it's done or how can I experiment with it. into prophecy, shamanic paths, dying, the invisible worlds and our relationship with them. As Holly also mentioned, you know, everything to do with alchemy, tarot, crystals, trance states, shamanic drumming. I was fortunate to be trained in a lot of these areas when I was very young. So I invited a shaman who was a shamanic drummer over to live with me for 2 weeks. I did things like that, you know, wild things in my in my teenage and early 20s, did all sorts of stuff, all the things that I wanted to do, you know, that are training in sound alchemy, you know, experimenting with remote viewing, doing all kind of, you know, communications with animals, with extraterrestrial civilizations, and, you know, really deep and profound experiences, which I'll show you and share with you some of the techniques that I've adopted over the years, just purely as ways for you to connect with the sacred and the divine in you and your own, you know, inner power. So we look at all those sort of things: angelic creatures, mystical creatures. What does it mean to travel cross-dimensionally? How do you actually do that? Body-related practices. So I did, you know, 20 or more years of kung fu, tai chi sword, karate, all sorts of. I love the Eastern martial arts practices, qigong, and so on. So, you know, body-related practices. And then finally, the final module that we're going to do is related around union, love, bliss, relationships, the light body, the bliss body. What does it mean to have a truly sacred and divine connection with other human beings, with our partners? How can we cultivate and assist and enhance the beauty of our relationships with each other? So if you wanted to sum it up, it's about relationship with the divine, relationship with the sacred in us, and relationship with all living creatures, and how can we cultivate and deepen the power, the compassion, and the love that exists in those relationships.
Yep, beautiful summary. Thank you. Sounds really yummy. I'm very, very
You're looking
excited.
forward to it as much as me.
I totally am.
And we've got some wonderful people who have signed up already, and
we do.
We've just had some of the testimonials that we've had from prior courses have been just, I don't know, I can't really thank people enough for the kind of support that you've given us over the years. You truly, you know, like I'll read one of them. I'm so grateful for both the knowledge that's been put forth and the beautiful space that's created in this course. It's been a life-changing experience for me to be invited into a circle of such lovely, like-minded souls. I mean, they're really, they're just, I can't thank you who are enough for your support, because it's about the collective, right? The sacred and divine is in each one of us. It's not about me telling you this is the technique, you go out, you connect to a starcraft, it comes in, you have a, you know, first contact experience. I mean, that could happen, definitely. In my experience, the most wild things have happened. But more importantly is that we're developing a relationship with the mystical and the sacred and the divine in each one of us. And we're doing this collectively. The power of the collective is just beyond anything that I can put into words.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So the last course we ran, Dream Yourself into Awakening, just had amazing energy. I couldn't be more thankful for the people that joined and participated. And it was, just like you say, it was made so rich by the depth of the people that were there, their sincerity, their love, the kindness, the compassion, all of it. And it made for an amazing 10 weeks together. And so we're excited to offer the Practical Mystic as the next offering. And hope if it sounds interesting to you, go take a look. I'd love to have you there.
That would, I think it's fine. You know, Holly, I do want to end with Ian, because Ian gave this wonderful quote that we sent out where he said, magnificent is not a word I ever use to describe a course, but in this case it is fitting. Ian, thank you for humbling me with your words. You truly are, as is everybody else listening, you truly are the sacred and the divine to me.
Well, on that note, thank you. You truly are the sacred and divine to me, Stephen. And
as you are too, Holly. I think that's what we're doing as a collective. And really with the HeartMind Alchemy Lab and raising
Yeah.
our vibration community and the conscious accelerator community and all the people that, you know, listen, tune in or share. You know, you really, as I often say to the Rinpoches and Lamas, you're the Dharmakaya, right? You're the infinite, indivisible, pure awareness to me. You're that. You're not separate from me, Holly, or anybody else. You are the divine. You're the sacred in us. You're the heart, and it's that heart that's going to transcend all time and space.
Yeah. Thank you. And
Holly, I can't thank you enough. You're the one who runs these sessions and looks after us all through this beautiful portal of the Heart Mind Alchemy talk show or happy hour. So thank you inestimably for your immaculate and divine nature. Thank you.
Thank you. Couldn't be more grateful for all of the sharing, the wisdom, the love, the support. Truly, truly. So have a beautiful weekend wherever you are, and yeah, we'll see you soon.